Hello, everybody. Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Okay. I'm not going to send a rematch request. If he, she, or they send me one, I'll accept. But otherwise, this was a really cool game to play. The resignation comes at a respectful point in the game, and after a full faith effort from a good opponent. So this is a good game of chess. I would say about this game, it was a bit on the dry side. I wouldn't say quite boring, but a little bit dry, which is good for me for winning it or whatever. That's not the main thing. The main thing is you have to know if you're gonna play chess to be a strong chess player, you have to be able to play a dry win. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just not as crazy as some of the more tactical, wild bishops flying off the board kind of chess game. This is a little bit more staid, a little bit more measured. It's a drier win, but that's one way that chess games might be. So it'll be good to go over this game for when you're presented with a dry game, how to keep yourself motivated, how to keep yourself looking for that move that's just slightly better than the second best move. Doesn't mean it's better to the tune of 3 queens. It's just slightly better. You can see that this was an accurate game, so that's also fun. Play good, accurate chess, and better your accuracy more and more, and you'll be becoming a stronger chess player all the while. Okay, so we'll start with review, and we'll move to the page where Torch 4 calculates. Okay, so right here, what's going on here? This is book. I have these central pawns. That's White's perk. Black has an extra pawn in his coffers. That's Black's perk. Excuse me for a moment. Okay, sorry about that. But White's turn to move. What to do? It looks like Black has played b5 in attempts to hold on to the extra pawn, and there might be a book way to play against that. My feeling was, look, the pawn's gone. Let's move on with things and transfer our material deficit into something less tangible but still powerful on the board. The way I thought to do that was to play pawn to b3, and as I had sort of planned out, this was I hadn't quite planned this out like that. I wasn't. Yeah, no, yeah. To be honest, I played pawn to b3. I wasn't sure if my opponent would capture or not. Upon capturing, then I get this tempo saving reprieve with bishop takes b5 check, and when blocked, I can still capture on b3 while protecting my bishop and developing my queen to a square that is fine for her to be. Other alternatives after bishop d7 would include instigating the trade on d7. It's a check. It must be met with probably the knight, possibly the queen. They look actually both about right, except that the knight has his normal developing square on c6, and c6 is being c6 would likely be under siege soon, so we'll take back with the queen here if we're black, and then White can play queen b3, and that would be a fine continuation in and of itself. I felt really strongly about queen takes b3, so that's what I played. Bishops trade on b5 with the queen's recapture coming, of course, with check. The block by the knight is good. Straightforward developing. There might have been a move here It's like somewhat better for white, but we'll carry on anyway. And black is in a cramped way going to make room for his pieces to develop. Black is cramped, okay? White is not. And this was interesting. I played knight f3. I played knight e2. I played knight e2 here. As recently as 5 years ago, I would always play knight f3 here. Why? It's further up the board. It's this forward press kind of thing. That's the natural developing square. There's nothing wrong with it. You can push e5 with more cover. All these reasons. I thought, but wait a minute. That's great for most games. Really, most games. White's kingside knight probably starts out after g1 moves to f3, right? Just about most games. But this isn't most games. We're a few moves into this. This is the eighth or ninth move or something like that. What was this? The eighth move? The ninth move. I played knight ge2, and as a marker of my progress, because I wanted to protect the knight on c3. And in years past, I might saw, I could protect the knight on c3, but I would also see, bishop b4, which would challenge this knight most directly, can be countered quite easily. Queen takes b4, and then played knight to f3 anyway. Or I might have thought of, bishop d2 will always be available, right? Right, bishop d2? Hello? Bishop d2? I'm sure he'll be available. So, with these things in mind, I played knight at g1 to e2, a symbiotic form of protection. Knight to knight here. We'll make moves like bishop b4, which admittedly isn't available right away, because my queen will just, capture. But the queen's a flighty piece, if I dare say so myself. So bishop e7, castles, queen out to f6. Bishop g5 is bad, but not horrendous. I guess like I said, we might turn to the computer's calculations. I kind of want to see why bishop g5 isn't so good. Okay, so bishop g5 is not the greatest, mostly because I think e5 pounces on an opportunity to really hem black in, put fire under the coals of black's f6 knight, and own a lot of space all in one pawn move from e4 to e5. So e5 is strong in that way. And I think maybe some intervening tactics, but mostly it's a strategic pawn push. But I played bishop to g5, which is sensible, logical. There's nothing all that wrong with it either. Just getting my pieces out onto a solid square. Some chess players develop their bishops more wide, like this, on the B and the G file. Other chess players develop their bishops, have a preference for the F file or the C file. And some players are more balanced. B, C, F, or G. Look, the bishops are getting developed. They're in the game. These are four great places for a white bishop to be. So yeah, that's what I have. And sometimes e2 is involved because of there being a pin on f3. Whatever it is, in the same way d2, but maybe less so. Yeah. But if you ever hear somebody say uh, like develop your bishop wide when kibitzing is allowed. This is what they're talking about. Mostly, more than any other piece, probably bishop to g5, as there's a white preference for it. It's a good developing move. After that, g5 is not any more, or not very much more powerful than other moves on the board to which that bishop can go. In the endgame, g5 or not g5, right? Hamlet's happy. And um, next to that might be either bishop b5 or the black bishop to g4. Anyway, we're a little bit off topic. Let's keep going. I played bishop g5, and as it turns out, what we'll see in just a few moves here, fighting for, black and white are fighting for the b file. Bishop g5 turns out to be fine and dandy. Here, I pushed pawn to e5, and there's some threats. Black has to be careful not to lose material, as we can see by Torch's output here, since this is analysis after the game. There's only one move for Black to save him, her, or they self from losing material, and that's knight to b6, knight to b, knight to b6. With knight to b6, Black wins a tempo by attacking White's a4 queen. She might go to c2, for instance, and that gives Black a tempo to move away from the pawn, right? So now the bishop is still an issue because I'm going to capture that knight on d6, but lo and behold, there's another knight. It has to be a knight to recapture his own on d5. I said d6, I meant d5. And now, for sure, Black's other knight is protecting against protecting against the case that I might initiate capture on e7. Bishop takes e7, knight takes e7, and when all the smoke has cleared, it's pretty much even in terms of material, pretty balanced. Let's go over that. That's quite a few moves there. So Black finds a way to attack the queen. That's for the tempo of initiative. I think c2 makes sense, so I'm going to play her to c2. And now with the knight moving to d5, there's a couple ways to play this. One would be to swap bishops first, and more pieces are on the board, so that's sometimes fun. But if you want to really test if Black is holding here, you would play knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and then after bishop takes d5, and then after bishop takes e7, knight takes e7. Both sides are doing fine. White could try to capture on. White will capture on c7 perhaps, and this is garbage. Well, oh no, that's not garbage. Excuse me. Yeah, then maybe the queens capture knights in turn, just sort of one after the other. And even White is dissuaded from capturing the black knight immediately because queen takes b1 will lead to checkmate. Right, the queen can't cover the knight on c1 after it's captured the knight on e7, and then mate follows. Yeah, so that's an outright blunder. So it's even, I think even as far back as queen takes c7. Okay. Yeah, there would normally be a way out of it here where White would at worst lose the e2 knight. I'd like to maybe play rook e1. It's not actually not a move I'd like to play. What I'd like to play is rook to c3, cover the attack on b1. But I think black's queen snatches up a pawn on d4. Yeah. Knight c3 isn't the end of the game, but it's not a good move either. And Torch likes this form of covering the knight, and it's a game. This will be a complicated, major, minor, and many pawn end game. It's queens, rooks, minor, and more than 4 pawns aside. This is his own thing at this point. So we go back to my game. My opponent played knight to b6. I scurried away. So this is all, part of this is hashed out through the game's play itself, and h6, trying to get the bishop off of the knight makes sense because that would free the knight almost to flee. He's no longer pinned to the bishop. The bishop. Black will not lose his bishop on e7 if the knight moves. What's kind of off about it is black can do that already, or in one fell swoop if you dare. Pawn to h6 isn't necessary, like you said, as per the previous analysis, right? Knight to d5. So perhaps this is a visual kind of thing where if your knight goes to d5, then cutting back to e7 isn't all that intuitive, isn't all that natural, and isn't the first thing you assess visually. So those types of moves are sometimes easy to miss, and it's a defensive one at that, which when we're playing blitz chess or game in 10 minutes per side per game, we're often thinking of the most forward kind of play, possible. h6, and we capture the knight, right? We're with this, that we capture the knight because this pawn can just keep hopping. Knight, oh, I captured a knight. Some move, capture the bishop. Oh, I captured a bishop. Some move, capture the rook and turn into a queen, and then it'll probably be immediately captured. But the point is that this pawn itself has a threat per move. The pawn on h6 has its current threat, and that's it. So I can afford to initiate these exchanges near black's king. And now doubled pawns leave an exposed g-file, and white is 2 pawns the better in terms of material. So as they say, let's get rolling. Queen e4, knight d5. Swapping material is usually good for white in this situation, being ahead material, and this one is no exception. Capture another pawn. The 2 to 3 jump is a big one in terms of your 2 pieces of material ahead. There's some things that could go awry. For instance, dropping a full piece that would make it your opponent's lead and not yours. But once you're ahead 3 points in material, the win is more likely. Your win is more likely at that point. All right, opponent puts his queen on the e-file, so it's a great place for black's queen to become active piece. And I'm trying to swap queens. So after the check that I levy from f5 to h7, the king moves and the knight moves. In this case, not to help swap a piece, though that was possible, but more to ratchet up the pressure against black. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know. It would be possible white might think about playing queen e5 check, right? Get the check, queen captures, or maybe black could move the king. Either way, then my queen could capture, and one way or another, the queens are off the board. So that's probably a safer play. And White has this plethora of good choices. We think we would consider Queen E5 check. The move I played, Knight F4 is not bad. Queen F6 check is interesting. I think Black can just cycle between the light squared pieces. So there's a lot of interesting moves on the board, and to all of them I say, what I played was Knight F4, but let's play out after Queen to E5 check. Right, Queen to E5. They're gonna swap queens, and now White has to win this endgame. So the computer might defend against me. Give up the pawn. That was a little bit loose. Rook to D6 wasn't the move there. Just put our rook where he's defending everything important. And with E6, let's see. Be a little bit careful with our capture with the knight. And you can see White has 2 extra pawns and an extra piece, so this is pretty much finito. Roll this back a bit. We had more pawns at this point. Okay, here we're rolling a bit better here. Alright. That was all as part of this game. Let's go over some of that, but first we're going to go over how the game went in real life. We traded queens a lot earlier, and if you remember in the position we just played, these pawns were level on the 4th rank when my rook started to be active. In the game as it actually occurred, they didn't get quite to level before my rook started attacking them. When they're in this formation where the back pawn defends the front pawn, the back pawn is vulnerable, is quite vulnerable to attack. So I exposed that with rook to c7. Then my opponent wants to play out this attack against a knight with hopes of bolstering. I mean, c7, c5's gone, but then what if the knight moves? Then maybe d4 is strong enough to become a promotion threat. I have evidence that that wasn't going to happen one way or the other because of pawn to g3. My opponent resigned, and there's no way to keep from. There's no way for my opponent. There's no way for my opponent to keep from losing the pawn on c5, pushing the pawn, and it's still vulnerable, keeping it there. Who's protecting it? So that would be kind of like the enough to say that white will just roll from there. In fact, let's play this out. This is the analysis of that lengthy end game that I was playing. We'll set that in motion. This is the practice of the game continued from where from where my opponent resigned. Now I want to mention too, white can capture a pawn on a7, f7, or c5. The priority here is c5. You capture on c5 because that's where the connected pass pawns are. This pawn has a lot to go through before ever becoming a queen. This pawn has less. This pawn has arguably less to go through. But these two pawns are connected pass pawns. I don't want them pushed to the point where I have to sacrifice my knight for one or both of them. So I'm hopping on capturing the c5 pawn before rather than later. All right, so we got that. Okay, good. Then rook takes c5. And we'll play this out. We'll attempt with this rook d5 move. You want to put your opponent in this sort of cognitive dissonance with rook d5. Either trade his last good piece or lose his, her, or they's last pawn. Okay, so my opponent chose to lose that last pawn, and that's good for white. This will defend that d2. All right, so that was a good way for for the game to continue. Let's see if that's accurate. I'm going to be signing off in about the next 2, 3, or 4 minutes, folks. There's that tab there. So I think technically it's a tab. Is this the game we just finished? Sure was. No. I think this is what we just finished. Yes. So this game was accurate, quite accurate, with the end game played out. 70 some moves. Alright. Alright. My opponent and I played an accurate game of chess. Neither he nor neither I nor neither neither he she nor neither he she they nor I. Neither he she they nor I need hang our heads about how we played. And I'm glad that I earned a win. All right. That's all for this broadcast, folks. It's 4:19 p.m. here on the east coast of the United States. We had a bit of snow last night. And I'm gonna mention that I'll probably be on later on today, uh, 2 hours or 3 hours from now. So if you want to tune in, that'd be great. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.